Clint, I enjoyed this because you made it clear you want them to go big game hunting, and I think on this show we've been in lockstep on that. We want the Texans to go big game hunting, but I think you want to make it perfectly clear what it is that you don't want the Texans to do when it comes to free agency in this offseason.
Ron, I didn't think there was a Texans fan on the planet that didn't want the Texans to go big game hunting. I am shocked at the pushback that I've received, and I'm sure we've received. We got we got several ways to communicate on this show: text line, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. I mean, there's all kind of ways to communicate, and I am shocked at how many people are almost offended when I say they got to go get 2 big-time impact players. I mean, I'm getting hit with all these teams build through the draft and they sign a couple players here or there, but they build through the draft. They do this, do that. And look, man, I am done with the Texans being in the conversation of teams that need to build a foundation and set a standard and bring certain types of players in here. And I'm done with thinking that is the best case for the Texans. Anybody that thinks this is a re-sign a couple of guys on the team now, draft well, sign a couple of middle-of-the-road free agents that give you some depth and maybe your starters in certain positions, and let's run this thing back, man. We won 10 games last year.
So, going after Robert Woods and Singletary, Devin
Don't
Singletary.
move the needle. Don't move the needle one bit. I'll give you a handful.
You need something bigger than Dalton Schultz and Jimmy
Ward. The guys that have been productive in their career, and they're really good guys, and, man, they're great leaders, but for some reason their team don't want to re-sign them. For some reason their team trades them. Those guys, right? Throw Brandon Cooks in that mix, right? Guess what? Everybody thought he was going to be a 1 here. He went to Dallas. He's clearly a 2, right? And I'm not sure that he's not a 3 behind the tight end, if I'm being completely honest, right? Dalton Schultz, who's here. Love Dalton Schultz. I love it. And I'm cool. I'm cool at this point if the Texans re-sign Dalton Schultz.
Kid is a freaking baller.
But that can't be part of your run-it-back plan, right? You mentioned Robert Woods and Devin Singletary. Malik Collins and Sheldon Rankins at the defensive line position. I love the fact that the corner, my mind just went blank. The opposite side.
Steve Nelson.
Steven Nelson, right? I love that he's on this squad. Great player, right? He's going to be great. He's great opposite. I love him as a number 2 corner. Des King, I love him as a number 3 corner. I love him as a slot guy, as a slot defender. Great players. But I cannot at all get down with these fans that think, oh man, we're run it back kind of a run it back kind of team. We don't need those kind of superstars. We don't. I mean, I am like I heard the In the Loop guys talking about Gabe Davis, right? And the context is with John Lopez. He said, hey, look, if you can't go get Evans and if you can't do that, I really like Gabe Davis to be cool. It wouldn't hurt my feelings one bit if Gabe Davis is here. That can't be your get over the hump. And I'm going to go beat the Chiefs, and I'm going to go beat the Ravens, and if I got to go to Buffalo, I'm going to beat Buffalo. That can't be your plan. Gabe Davis can't be your plan. Zach Moss, that can't be your plan. I mean, it's just like these guys are in a spot where they have got to swing big and move the needle and give themselves a chance to win against the best in the league when it matters the most. And I just
Hollywood Brown being your top guy coming in free agency.
Can't do it. I mean, can't do it. It's like Baltimore right now talking about, are they giving up on Rashad Bateman too early? No. I mean, you're not. Like, you got to go get better. You're in the league with the big boys. You are Super Bowl or bust type of team right now. And I believe that the Texans are there. That you are ahead of schedule. You took advantage of having a weak schedule last year. You took advantage of C.J. Stroud playing lights out. Nico Collins coming out of nowhere. Tank Dell on pace to be your leading receiver before he gets injured as a number 3. I mean, a third-round pick. I mean, you did a great job last year. The stars aligned for you to exceed expectations in a major, major way. You can't go into 2024 expecting those same things to happen. The next Blake Cashman ain't coming, right? I mean, the next Sheldon Rankins.
The odds are.
I mean, but you can't keep living life in the NFL and expecting guys to exceed expectations and play well above their head the way that guys did last year. You look at Will Anderson, you look at C.J. Stroud, you look at Blake Cashman, you look at Nico Collins. Did I say Tank Dell already? I mean, you go down the list of all these guys, and they
played over their heads.
They played
not over their heads, but at least well over the expectation.
Yes, and I mean that's just like that's at some point that's not going to happen.
And those guys got to be close to that level next year for them to get to where they got.
Yes, yeah. I am shocked at the pushback of like, man, if you're a Texans fan right now and you're not in the mindset of, man, we are riding a huge wave of momentum right now. We exceeded expectations. We did more with less last year. All right, let's go do more with more. Right? Doing more with less at some point, gets you in trouble, and you lose the momentum. You backslide. Now you rebuild. Now you slid back into reality, and you're like, oh hell, what are we going to do now? Like, you're in a spot where you can ride this wave, but you got to make some moves that's going to allow you to stay on the damn surfboard.
Yeah.
I mean, and here's the other deal. It's like the thought of like the build through the draft and build the depth and the foundation.
Someone just texted in, you should build, all great teams are built through the draft.
Yeah, that's fine. But guess what? The 49ers went out and traded for Trent Williams. The 49ers went out and traded for Christian McCaffrey. They got to a certain point, they built to a certain point, and they said, we need some different level dudes in here. Right? Throughout the way, they developed Kittle. Right? They did some check this exotic fullback. They did some good things. They drafted Brock Purdy.
Debo Samuels.
Brandon Ayuk. They did. They got some pieces. But at some point, they went out and they got dudes to plug in to an already built roster, if you will. Now you've got game changers. Cincinnati Bengals. They drafted Burrow. They drafted Chase. They drafted T. Guess what they did? Their defense wasn't good enough. They went out there and invested in their defense. The Kansas City Chiefs.
They got Trey Hendrickson. They big money. Yeah,
right. The Chiefs, they went out there and they won Super Bowls and said, you know what? This still ain't good enough. They went out there and made moves. You mentioned it earlier. They made a move for Frank Clark and them, and then they made a move for all these offensive linemen recently.
They just signed an offensive lineman for $80 million at right tackle.
I mean, all of the Bills. The Bills weren't good enough. What'd they do? They went out and made a deal with Diggs. Now, I'm sure there's other guys out there that they made, other game changers that they made big time moves for. But just go down the list, and every one of these teams went out. Look at Baltimore. I mean, they didn't hit on it, but they went out and paid Odell Beckham Jr. $15 million to come in there.
They traded for Roquan Smith.
That's the other. There's another one. Yep. I mean, so you like every one of those teams at some point. You got to acquire that level of talent. Now, if you're fine with just sitting back, I had a guy the other day on Twitter. It's a great back and forth, but he comes back and he said, "Oh, those guys you mentioned weren't signed in free agency; they were traded for." And I'm like, I don't give a damn. I would rather you sign them in free agency than give up a bunch of draft picks for them in a trade and have to pay them. Like, I'd rather you pay them right now in free agency and keep your draft picks. But either way it goes, I don't care how you acquire the player. I believe the Texans are at a spot where the next step is huge, and it's only taken if you sign game-changing type players. Whether that's a D tackle, a wide receiver, a running back, a corner, I don't care how you do it, but that's just the only way you take the next step. Like the building the team through the draft, that's a whole different conversation. Like Nick's done a great job.
I don't know much more building. You got
That's it. I mean,
especially in the spot where you're in right now.